I would like to take the opportunity to thank the government for the financial assistance that they've provided over 3 million people who are Centrelink recipients through the provision of the coronavirus supplement since the original outbreak of the virus back in March. I'd just like to make it clear, we actually don't need this legislation. The Minister already has the powers through regulation to extend the supplement. The only exception is if you're a student or apprentice on youth allowance, and they could deal with that separately. So this legislation in the House today actually technically is not needed. This legislation does two things though. It does reduce the coronavirus supplement from $250 to $150 a fortnight from the 1st of January 2021. But I think the underlying purpose of this legislation by the government is to draw a very hard line on the supplements from the 31st of March 2021, which sounds like a long time away, but it really isn't. And that purpose then is, with this legislation, is that there can no longer be any extensions to the coronavirus supplement. And that will take us back to the old New Start rate, which I know would fill many people, particularly older people who are having difficulty finding employment but not yet at the age of retirement, many of whom have worked for decades but can no longer find employment. That will take them down, a single person, down to $282 a fortnight. That's actually what every person in this house receives for one night for accommodation. It's pretty outrageous that we would do that to our fellow Australians. Now, in my electorate, you cannot rent a single property, not even a one-bedroom bedsit, for $280 a week. So to know that we are going to be taking people back from the 31st of March, as winter's coming, to that rate, I think is actually outrageous. And I think we need to do better as a nation. This is going to affect people on partner allowance, widow allowance, youth allowance, people who are on the job seeker payment, people who are receiving ab study living allowance and off study, parenting payment, and farm household allowance. We're going to do this to our farmers as well, and people who receive special benefit. Now, while this is going to affect the individual, it's actually also in my community going to affect my small businesses, because money is circular in the economy. So people won't be going to the butchers. People won't be going to my fruit and veg stores. And you know what that's going to mean? That's going to mean a constriction. That's going to mean that potentially people who are currently working are actually going to be at the threat of losing their jobs. And then we increase this problem. There's going to be some big winners though. There's going to be big winners out of this. The payday lenders, the pawn shops, the buy now, pay later schemes. It's going to entrench debt. It's going to entrench hardship, and it's unnecessary, and it's actually really bad for the economy to do this. It's going to increase the demand on homeless services, on critical emergency assistance and food relief. It's going to increase the demand on mental health services. Now, they're all services that government pays for, so we're actually not saving any money by doing this. It's actually a furphy to think that this is helping the budget's bottom line. Just yesterday I received an email from a woman. She's in her 50s, she's currently homeless, she's worked for a long time in her life, she doesn't have a job at the moment, she's trying to secure private rental. In my electorate, particularly on the South Coast, there's up to 100 people attending open inspections for one home because we just don't have enough rental properties. She's worried about how she's going to live post the coronavirus supplement ending. What do we need to do? Well, this is an opportunity for the government to create a permanent increase to the job seeker rate. Now, for a very long time, the sector was calling for $95 a week. I think that that would be a very reasonable amount that still provides a huge incentive for people to try and get off job seeker, while also ensuring that the absolute basics of life can be met. There's another thing we need to do, and we never really talk about it in this place, is we actually need to lift the age of the single parenting payment, that the age that a person moves from that to job seeker. Right now, when your youngest child is 8 years of age, you are moved from that onto job seeker. Now, I don't know a single member in this place that would leave their 8-year-old child at home alone in the hours. Maybe if they managed to get a job, they would be there until 5 o'clock at night at least and then do the drive home. People say, oh, but you know, there's after school care. Well, not in the regions. It's very, very difficult to get a place of after school care in the regions. And so for some parents who have been able to find employment, those children are home alone at night. I really don't think that's the Australia we want to see. We should be lifting that to at least age 10 or 12. I would say 12, that's the age a child is more independent, that is the age that a child would move to high school, but 8 years of age is unnecessarily cruel, and to be honest, I'm quite surprised that that was a decision made by Labor. That shouldn't have been done, and I think that we need to address that urgently. It's a wicked thing to do. So with this legislation, Mr Deputy Speaker, we're put in a very difficult position. Do we support the legislation that gives another 3 months of just a little bit extra for people who have enormous bills in January? I don't know about you, but in January it's the time when all the bills come through the door, and if you have children at school, it's school bags and pencil cases and hoping, you know, new shoes and school uniforms, and the council rates come in. Everything comes in January just after Christmas, and that's when we're reducing people down to $75 a week. So we've got two choices. Do we play chicken with the government and think that they're going to actually do a permanent increase, or do we accept this knowing that on the 31st of March we are condemning people to abject poverty? It's a horrible decision to make, and I would urge the government to rethink their legislation.